The forbidden planet. The void of space stretched endlessly around the Typhorian scout ship Valter as it drifted toward its target. The crew had spent weeks in deep space, charting new systems, but nothing had prepared them for this. Captain Rezik, a seasoned explorer of the Typhorian fleet, stared at the readings on his console. His four-fingered hand hovered over the screen, his scaled face twisted in confusion. "This cannot be correct," he muttered. The planet before them was labeled OIX-47, an uncharted world on the edge of the galactic map. But according to every scientific model, no life should exist here. And yet, the distress beacon coming from the surface told a different story. A planet that shouldn't exist. Rezik's second-in-command, Takar, leaned over the controls, his ridged brow furrowed. "Atmospheric conditions are highly unstable," he said. "Oxygen levels fluctuate unpredictably. Gravity is extreme, nearly twice that of any known habitable world. Radiation pockets across the surface. No civilization should be able to thrive here." Rezik nodded. That was exactly the problem. Yet, someone is sending a signal. He pointed to the console. The beacon pulsed steadily, a distress call. "Could be automated," suggested Navigator Silva, the youngest member of the crew. Her furred ears twitched as she examined the screen. A lost probe, maybe a crashed vessel. Rezik considered the possibility, but no ships were ever recorded near this sector. The Galactic Dominion had labeled this world as uninhabitable centuries ago, and yet, something was calling for help. Descent into the unknown. Rezik made his decision. "Prepare for landing. We investigate." Takar hesitated. "Sir, this world is a death world. If something survived down there, then we must understand how," Rezik interrupted. With a low hum, the Valter's engines roared to life, guiding the ship into the planet's thick atmosphere. Immediately, the ship shook violently. Winds howled like living creatures. Electrical storms crackled across the sky. The pressure sensors screamed warnings. But the crew held steady. As the ship broke through the clouds, the view below stole their breath. It was not a dead world. It was alive. A world of monsters. The landscape stretched endlessly in all directions. Vast jungles, towering mountains, oceans raging with massive waves. Massive creatures lurked beneath thick canopies, their eyes glowing in the darkness. The temperature scans spiked. Heat waves, ice storms, magnetic distortions. "This is madness," Takar whispered. "No species should survive this." But someone had, because the distress beacon was still calling them closer. First contact with the impossible. The ship landed in a small clearing, steam hissing from its hull as the crew prepared to step outside. Rezik adjusted his breathing mask and checked his weapon. Caution was necessary. The landing ramp lowered with a heady clang. As the crew stepped onto the soil, the weight hit them instantly. The gravity was brutal. Even with enhanced suits, their bodies struggled against the pull. Yet, whoever sent the signal, they lived here every day. The thought made Rezik uneasy. "Spread out," he ordered. "Find the source of the beacon." The crew moved carefully, their scanners flickering in the strange energy fields. Then Silva stopped. "Sir, I found something." The ruins of the forgotten. In the clearing stood a structure. Not a shipwreck, not alien technology. Buildings, ruined, broken, but unmistakably artificial. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief. An advanced species lived here, Takar muttered. "Impossible," Rezik whispered. "This world should have killed them." And yet, someone had built homes, roads, watchtowers. The distress beacon was coming from inside. Rezik stepped forward. "We go in." The crew entered cautiously, scanning every corner. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols they didn't understand. Then, in the center of the ruined hall, they found it. A body. The human corpse. The being was humanoid, but not Sci-Fiorian, not from any species recorded in the Dominion archives. The corpse was old, skeletal, yet its armor remained intact. A strange insignia was etched into the metal chest plate. UNSF. Rezik frowned. I don't recognize this language. Silva knelt, scanning the remains. Then her scanner flashed red. Her fur bristled. Sir, this body is old. Very old. Rezik tensed. How old? Silva swallowed hard. At least 300 years. Silence. The distress beacon was still active. But if this human died centuries ago, who sent it? A cold realization settled over the crew. They were not alone. Something watches. The wind howled through the ruins. A deep, unsettling silence followed. Then, a sound. A rustling in the trees. A shadow moved. Takar raised his weapon. Something's here. Rezik's heart pounded. The distress beacon pulsed louder, as if responding to something. Then, a voice. Low, rough, human. Who the hell are you? Rezik turned sharply. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Tall, armored, eyes sharp. Not dead, not a ghost. A living human. Against all odds. Against all logic. He was here. And he was watching them. First contact with the impossible. The jungle was silent. Too silent. The alien crew stood frozen, their weapons raised. Their minds struggled to accept what their eyes were seeing. A living human stood before them. He should not exist. No species should have survived here. Yet here he was, watching them, studying them. And from the way he held himself, he was not afraid. The human speaks. Captain Rezik's throat was dry. His species, the Sci-Fiorians, had catalogued thousands of planets. They had encountered warlike species, intelligent machines, and even life forms beyond physical form. But never had they seen something like this. A creature that defied science. A species that refused to die. The human stepped forward, his boots crunching against the debris of ancient ruins. His face was weathered, his dark hair streaked with silver, and his eyes, those piercing, unbroken eyes, held a weight Rezik could not understand. Then the human spoke. Who the hell are you? His voice was calm, dangerous, like a predator deciding if something was worth killing. The alien crew tensed. Takar, the second in command, aimed his plasma rifle. Identify yourself. The human did not flinch. He simply exhaled. Then he said something that sent chills through Rezik's body. You're the first outsiders to step here in a long, long time. The impossible survivor. Rezik forced himself to speak. My name is Captain Rezik of the Typhorian Dominion. He paused, studying the human. Who are you? The human's lips twitched, almost into a smirk. Captain Darius Holt, United Nations Space Force. Earthborn. Rezik frowned. United Nations. Earth? He had never heard of such names. How long have you been here? He asked cautiously. Darius chuckled, a sound that carried no warmth. I lost count after the first few centuries. The crew stiffened. Centuries. That was impossible. No species in the Dominion lived that long, especially not under these conditions. Yet this human, he was alive. And that meant everything the Dominion believed about Deathworlds and survival was wrong. A warning from the past. Darius's eyes drifted over the crew, scanning their faces. Then he nodded toward the skeleton in the ruins, the human corpse they had found earlier. You thought that was me, didn't you? He asked. Rezik hesitated. Yes. Darius chuckled again. You're not the first. Takar stepped forward, his voice sharp. How is this possible? No known species could endure these conditions. Radiation, gravity, predators. Your kind should be extinct. Darius's smirk vanished. His gaze locked onto Takar, and in that moment, the Sci-Fiorian felt small. Darius spoke, his voice steady. The thing about humans is, we don't die easy. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Then, without another word, Darius turned and walked away. Rezik blinked. Where are you going? The human didn't stop. You want answers, Darius said over his shoulder. Then follow me. The underground city. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Silva, the navigator, whispered, Are we really following him? Rezik's mind raced. Every instinct told him this was a mistake. But this human knew something. And if Rezik had learned anything in his years of exploration, it was this: knowledge is worth the risk. He signaled his team forward. They followed Darius through the ruins, moving carefully through the jungle's twisting vines and colossal trees. Then, after what felt like hours of tense silence, they reached a hidden rock formation. Darius approached a massive stone wall, placed his hand on it, and the ground rumbled. With a deep mechanical groan, the wall slid open, revealing a massive underground tunnel. The alien crew stared in disbelief. You have a city, Rezik breathed. Darius grinned. We have more than that. They stepped inside. And the Sci-fian crew saw something they could never have imagined. The last humans of Earth. Beneath the planet's deadly surface was a vast underground civilization. Hundreds, no, thousands, of humans moved through the tunnels. Children ran. People worked on massive machines. Soldiers trained in open courtyards. Weapons, not primitive, but advanced, lined the walls. The Sci-fian crew stood frozen. This is not possible, Takar whispered. Silva's ears flattened. This is an extinction world. How are they alive? Darius turned, his expression unreadable. Because we adapted. We evolved. We learned to make this world ours. Rezik shook his head. This planet should have destroyed you. Darius's eyes darkened. It tried. He nodded toward a massive war machine, twice the size of their ship. And so did the ones who put us here. Rezik felt a chill crawl up his spine. The ones who put you here, he repeated. Darius exhaled slowly. Then, with the weight of history behind his words, he said, We weren't born here. We were left here, exiled, hunted, buried in history. But we survived. His eyes locked onto Rezik's. And now, they're coming back. Something worse is coming. Before Rezik could respond, a deep, echoing siren blared through the underground city. Darius's face turned to stone. He grabbed a nearby communicator. Report. A soldier's voice crackled through the speaker. Enemy ships detected. Low orbit. They found us. The room fell into chaos. Humans grabbed weapons. Shields activated. Alarms blared. Darius turned back to Rezik. Your ship. Does it have long-range comms? Rezik nodded slowly. Yes, but... Good, Darius interrupted. Because if your Dominion has any sense, you're gonna need to warn them. Rezik hesitated. Warn them of what? Darius turned, strapping on an armored vest. Then, in the coldest voice Rezik had ever heard, he answered, that the ones who abandoned us are coming back to finish what they started. And with that, the war for Earth had begun. The humans revealed themselves. The underground city was no longer silent. Alarms blared. Red warning lights flashed against the steel walls. Hundreds of humans rushed to defensive positions, weapons in hand, faces grim. The Sci-fian crew stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing. Humans should not exist here, yet not only did they exist, they were ready for war. The sky darkens. Above the planet, in the cold void of space, they arrived. The Varak warships. Massive black monoliths that reflected no light. Silent, unforgiving, predators of the void. The same species that had exiled humanity to this death world centuries ago. They had come to finish the job. And this time, they brought a fleet. Inside the human war room, Captain Darius Holt stared at the incoming enemy ships. His fingers tightened around the edge of the console. Took them long enough. The Hyphorian crew watches in horror. Captain Rezik and his crew stood in stunned silence, staring at the holographic display. They had known of the Verak, a brutal species, a warlike empire that ruled the outer edges of the galaxy with fear and dominance. But there was one terrifying fact that stood out. The Verak do not return to finish their work. If they were here now, then that meant they saw humanity as a threat. Takar, the second in command, exhaled sharply. We need to leave. Now. Silva, the navigator, whispered, they'll kill us just for being here. But Rezik barely heard them. His eyes were locked onto Darius. Because the human was not afraid. He was smiling. The humans are ready. You think we're running? Darius scoffed, turning to Rezik. No. We've been waiting for this moment. He tapped a button on the console. A new hologram appeared. And what Rezik saw made his blood run cold. Beneath the planet's surface, hidden beneath layers of rock and jungle, lay hundreds of massive human war machines. Armored mechs, anti-orbital cannons, starfighters designed for the extreme conditions of this world. A hidden army. Rezik inhaled sharply. You've been preparing for this, he realized. Darius's smile didn't fade. We knew they'd come back eventually. He turned toward his people. Get to your stations, lock down defenses, and prep the fleet. A young soldier nodded and rushed off. Rezik blinked. Fleet? What fleet? Darius turned to him. His eyes were hard, unyielding, filled with the weight of survival. We have ships, Cyphorian. His voice was calm, controlled. And we're about to remind the Verak why they should have killed us when they had the chance. The war begins. The first Verak attack came without warning. From the sky, black ships rained energy blasts down onto the jungle. Massive explosions tore through the landscape. They expected it to be easy. They expected humanity to be defenseless. They expected to win. Instead, they woke a sleeping beast. Earth's retaliation. Darius gave the order. Launched the counterstrike. Across the underground base, hidden hangars opened. From beneath the jungle floor, human warships lifted off. Fighter jets designed for high gravity. Bombers built for extreme weather combat. Interceptor drones armed with weapons stolen from fallen Verak warriors. They surged into the sky. For the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer hiding. They were fighting back. The Kyphorians witnessed the impossible. Rezik and his crew watched the battle unfold. It made no sense. The Verak were an empire, a military superpower. Humanity was supposed to be extinct. Yet here, above this cursed Deathworld, the impossible was happening. The Verak were losing. Their ships, built for conquest and intimidation, were not prepared for the chaos of Earth's survivors. The gravity was too high. The storms interfered with their sensors. And the humans, they moved like predators. They struck with precision. They were faster, smarter, more brutal. And for the first time in history, the Verak were afraid. The turning point. Takar whispered, "They're winning." Silva shook her head in disbelief. "No, they're hunting." Darius watched the battle unfold. His voice was calm. "This planet is ours. Always has been. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. But we're done defending it." He turned to Rezik. "You have long-range comms on your ship, right?" Rezik hesitated. "Yes." Darius's eyes were like steel. "Then you better send a message to your Dominion. Because after we're done with the Verak, we're taking back the rest of the galaxy. The hunters have arrived." The skies burned. Human warships and Verak dreadnoughts clashed above the Deathworld, streaks of fire and destruction ripping through the atmosphere. But for the first time in history, the Verak were not the hunters. They were the hunted. The Verak's mistake. On the Verak flagship, Overlord Korak watched the battle unfold from his command deck. His claws gripped the railing, rage boiling beneath his armored skin. "This was supposed to be an extermination," he growled. A Varak officer hesitated. "Overlord, the humans were not supposed to have ships. We thought they were extinct." Korak turned and snapped the officer's neck with one hand. The bridge fell into silence. "You thought wrong," Korak hissed. His glowing red eyes locked onto the battlefield. The humans were outnumbered. They should be losing. But instead, they were winning. Korak bared his fangs. "These creatures survived for centuries on this cursed world. I will not let them leave it alive." He turned to his fleet commanders. "Unleash the war beasts." The sky falls. From the Varak warships, massive drop pods rained down. They crashed into the jungle with earth-shattering force. And then, they opened. Monstrous bioengineered war beasts emerged. 10 feet tall, with claws like steel and skin that pulsed with alien energy. Creatures designed for one purpose: hunt, kill, eradicate. The Varak had unleashed their ultimate weapons. Darius Holt watched from the human war room. His face did not change. He simply lifted his rifle. Finally, he turned to his soldiers. "They brought the hunt to us." He grinned. "Then let's remind them who the apex predators are." The jungle turns red. The first war beast attacked. It moved like a nightmare, faster than anything the human soldiers had faced before. Its claws tore through steel, its roar shook the ground. But the humans, they didn't run. They adapted. The first beast lunged, only to step into a human-made trap. An explosive detonated beneath its feet, sending it crashing into a pit lined with plasma-tipped spears. The second beast charged at a squad of humans, only for a sniper's high-caliber bullet to rip through its skull. The third, Darius faced it alone. It snarled, towering over him. Darius simply cracked his knuckles. "Let's see how tough you are." The beast lunged. Darius didn't dodge. He stepped in. His fist slammed into the creature's jaw with a force that sent it flying back. The alien beast staggered, confused. And that's when Darius pulled his combat knife and finished the job. One clean strike. One more dead monster. And then the jungle fell silent. The Sci-fiseries witnessed the impossible. Rezik and his crew watched in horror. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. The humans, asterisk, who should have been weak, who should have been the hunted, asterisk, were slaughtering the Varak's ultimate weapons. Takar turned to Rezik. "They're not just survivors," he whispered. "They're something else." Silva's fur stood on edge. "They're evolved for war." Rezik exhaled. The Dominion has no idea what humanity is truly capable of. Then he turned, realizing the real danger. Because if the humans won this war, they would not stop here. The Overlord's last move. On the Varak flagship, Overlord Korak watched in horror. His war beasts, his ultimate weapons, were dead. His ground forces, annihilated. And now his fleet was beginning to fall. Korak snarled. "Fine. If I cannot win, then I will burn this entire world to ash." He turned to his command console and entered a final code. Deep within his warship, a planet cracker bomb activated, a weapon designed to wipe an entire world from existence. Korak grinned. "Let's see you survive this, human." The final countdown. Alarms blared through the human war room. Warning. Extinction class device activated. Darius's expression hardened. Rezik's eyes widened. "They're going to destroy the planet." Darius didn't hesitate. "Not if we get to them first." He turned to his best pilots. "We're taking the fight to their flagship." Rezik blinked. "You mean tow?" Darius grabbed his rifle. "We're gonna steal their ship." The human soldiers cheered. The Sci-fiseries stared in shock. Rezik shook his head. "You are insane." Darius smirked. "Yeah, He loaded his weapon. But that's why we win. The battle for Earth. The countdown had begun. Deep within the Verak flagship, the planet cracker bomb ticked away, its silent pulse echoing through the halls of the enemy warship. If it detonated, Earth would be erased from existence. The Verak had lost the battle. But they had chosen total destruction over surrender. And humanity. Humanity had chosen war. The impossible plan. Darius Holt stood in the war room, his expression unreadable. The Kyphorian crew watched in stunned silence. "You're serious," Rezik whispered. "You're actually going to board their flagship." Darius loaded his weapon. "We're not just boarding it." He turned to his soldiers. "We're taking it." The room erupted in cheers. This wasn't a suicide mission. This wasn't a desperate last stand. This was a statement. The Verak thought they could erase humanity. Now, humanity was going to erase them. The war in the skies. Above Earth, the battle intensified. Human fighter jets weaved through enemy fire, dodging plasma cannons and returning with pinpoint strikes. The Verak fleet was crumbling, but time was running out. Darius and his team needed a way onto the enemy flagship. That's when Zara, the lead pilot, grinned. "I got an idea." Her fighter jet tilted toward the Verak warship, then accelerated at impossible speed. Rezik's eyes widened. "What is she?" Darius smirked. "She's crashing into it." A high-speed infiltration. Zara's fighter jet slammed into the Verak flagship's hull. A massive explosion. A breach in the ship's defenses. And in that moment, Darius and his strike team launched. Using jetpacks and magnetic boots, they stormed through the breach. The Verak inside never saw it coming. One moment, they were securing the bomb. The next, humans were inside their ship. And humans fight dirty. The battle inside the flagship. The Verak forces panicked. Their war beasts were dead. Their fleet was falling apart. And now, their most dangerous enemy was inside their own stronghold. Darius led the charge. His soldiers moved like ghosts, silent, efficient, brutal. One by one, the Verak fell. Plasma rifles discharged in close combat. Knives pierced armored throats. Explosives ripped through enemy corridors. And in minutes, the Verak flagship was no longer theirs. It belonged to the humans. The final countdown. But the mission wasn't over. The bomb was still active. Darius reached the control room and stared at the countdown. 60 seconds. Takar, the Typhorian officer, spoke quickly. "We don't have time. We need to evacuate." Darius ignored him. He turned to his tech specialist, Jackson. "Can you disable it?" Jackson's hands moved across the alien console. "No, but..." Darius frowned. "But what?" Jackson grinned. "I can redirect it." The Overlord's fate. On the Verak fleet's last remaining warship, Overlord Korak watched in horror. The humans had taken his flagship. The bomb had not detonated. And now, a new signal appeared on his screen. Tar-GT Lockheed. Korak's eyes widened. No, the humans had done the impossible. They had turned his own weapon against him. There was no time to escape. The planet cracker bomb, designed to erase Earth, was now aimed at the Verak warship. The last thing Korak heard was Darius Holt's voice broadcasted across the enemy fleet. "This is what happens when you try to wipe out humanity." Then, the explosion. The entire Verak fleet vanished in a storm of fire and destruction. Humanity rises. The battle was over. The Verak were gone. The war had been won. And humanity. Humanity had taken a Verak warship as their own. Rezik and his Zyphorian crew stared in disbelief. You actually did it," he whispered. Darius grinned. "We're just getting started." He turned to his soldiers. "This ship isn't just a trophy. It's a message." Rezik swallowed. "A message to who?" Darius's smile faded. "The ones who abandoned us." He looked to the stars. Because if the Varak knew we survived, so do they. And we're going to war. The war for the galaxy. The Varak were gone. The battle for Earth had ended in a victory no one thought possible. But wars do not end with a single battle. And humanity. Humanity had just declared war on the galaxy. The aftermath of victory. Darius Holt stood on the command deck of the captured Varak warship. His hands rested on the alien console, his reflection visible in the blood-streaked steel. The Typhorian crew stood behind him, speechless. Captain Rezik had seen empires rise and fall. He had charted new worlds, witnessed battles across 100 systems. But never had he seen something like this. A lost species, exiled, forgotten, not only surviving, but now armed with the most powerful warship in the sector, and ready to fight. The message that shook the universe. The captured Varak warship wasn't just a weapon. It was a beacon. Human engineers had already begun rewriting the ship's systems, adapting its technology into something uniquely human. Darius stood before the ship's main communication relay. He activated it, and in that moment, every major faction in the galaxy received a transmission. A simple message, a warning. Earth lives. Humanity has returned, and we have unfinished business. The hidden enemy. Far across the stars, in the Dominion core worlds, the transmission played before a silent council. Shrouded figures sat in a vast, dimly lit chamber. The rulers of the Galactic Dominion. For centuries, they had buried the truth. For centuries, they had erased Earth from history. Now their greatest mistake had come back to haunt them. One of the council members rose to his feet, trembling. This is not possible. Another, older and colder, spoke without fear. We always knew this day would come. He turned to the shadows beyond the chamber. Awaken the fleets. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of an empire. If the humans wish for war, then war they shall have. The unstoppable march. On the captured warship, human soldiers stood in formation. Darius faced them, his voice calm, controlled. We were never supposed to leave this planet. They thought we would die here. They thought they could erase us from history. His eyes burned. But we survived. And now, he gestured to the ship around them. Now we have the means to remind the galaxy who we are. The soldiers pounded their fists against their chests. The Typhorian crew watched in uneasy silence. Captain Rezik stepped forward, voice uncertain. Darius, you just won your planet back. You have a future here. Why not rebuild? Darius turned to him, his expression unreadable. We are rebuilding, he said, but not just Earth. He looked toward the stars. We're taking back everything. The first strike. The Varak were dead. But there were others. The Dominion. The ones who had erased Earth from existence. The ones who had ordered humanity's exile. They were still out there, ruling, watching, preparing. And so, humanity moved first. A new fleet, a new war, a new legend. And when the first human warship breached Dominion space, its commander sent one final message. A promise. A threat. We were forged in fire. You tried to kill us. Now, it's our turn. The war for the galaxy had begun. The final answer. The stars trembled. Across the galaxy, from the shimmering towers of the Dominion core worlds to the lawless outposts on the fringe, one message echoed through every channel. Earth lives. Humanity has returned. And we are coming. The war for survival had ended. Now, it was a war for dominance. The first move. The stolen Varak warship, now repurposed and renamed the UNSF Vengeance, ripped through hyperspace, heading toward Dominion territory. On the bridge, Darius Holt stood tall. Beside him, Captain Rezik of the Typhorians watched the planetary defenses of the Dominion world ahead. His voice was quiet. You're about to start something you can't stop, human. Darius didn't look at him. It was never going to stop. A single command left his lips. Open fire. The first human warship in centuries unleashed destruction upon the Dominion. The war had begun. The Dominion's response. Deep within the Dominion High Council, alarms blared. Screens flickered, showing human warships attacking a key outpost. An armored figure stepped forward. Admiral Vecren, the supreme commander of the Dominion fleet, watched in silence. They were supposed to be dead, one council member whispered. They were supposed to be forgotten, another muttered. Vecren turned toward them. They were supposed to be weak, he said coldly. He stepped into the light, revealing battle-scarred features and a single cybernetic eye. His gaze burned with something ancient. Fear and rage. Deploy the Black Fleet, he commanded. If the humans want a war. His cybernetic eye gleamed. We will give them extinction. Humanity's greatest weapon. Back on the UNSF Vengeance, Darius's officers watched as Dominion warships approached. Massive, heavily armed. The elite forces. Silva, the Cyphorian navigator, swallowed. There are too many of them. Takar, the weapons expert, muttered, even your stolen ship won't survive this. Darius said nothing. Instead, he turned to a nearby console and activated a private channel. A deep, familiar voice crackled through. Waiting on your order, Captain. Rezik frowned. Who is that? Darius grinned. Backup. The Shadow Fleet revealed. Far beyond the Dominion sensors, in the forgotten ruins of humanity's old colonies, something stirred. Hundreds of ships powered up. Some were ancient human warships, hidden from history. Others were new designs, built in secret, waiting for this moment. And some were not ships at all. They were weapons. Humanity's revenge, forged over centuries of silence. At the heart of the fleet, a colossal dreadnought, the UNSF Retribution, emerged from the void. A vessel unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And at its helm, the last surviving general of old Earth's armies, General Marcus Kane. His voice was gravel, hardened by time. Commander Holt, he said, let's remind the Dominion why they feared us. Darius smirked. Engage. And with that, the full force of humanity returned to the battlefield. The battle that changed the galaxy. The Dominion Black Fleet met the United Nations Shadow Fleet above the burning skies of Tovik 9. What was supposed to be a one-sided extermination turned into a slaughter, but not for humanity. The Dominion had never fought an enemy like this. Ships designed for gravity warfare. Weapons reverse-engineered from alien technology. Tactics refined through generations of survival. For every human warship that fell, 10 Dominion vessels burned. For every squad of human Marines lost, an entire Dominion battalion was wiped out. And for the first time in millennia, the Dominion ran. Admiral Vecren watched his fleet crumble. He clenched his fists. They were supposed to be extinct. Then he turned, his voice a whisper of fury. Call the elders. A shadow fell over the Dominion. Because there was one final truth. A secret that had been buried even deeper than Earth's existence. The Dominion was not truly in control. The final answer. In the deep void, where the oldest stars barely glowed, something awakened. An intelligence older than the Dominion. Older than the Varak. Older than humanity itself. The Elders. They had erased Earth from history. They had engineered the Varak to wipe out humanity. And now, they had failed. Humanity had returned. Humanity had become stronger. A voice, ancient and emotionless, echoed through the minds of the Dominion's leaders. The cycle is broken. Humanity was not meant to rise again. They must be erased, permanently. And in the darkness, the true enemy of mankind stirred. Not the Varak. Not the Dominion. Something far worse. The war is not over. On the bridge of the UNSF Vengeance, Darius watched the retreating Dominion ships. Rezik exhaled. It's over. We won. Darius shook his head. "No," he said, eyes still locked on the stars. "This was just the beginning." General Marcus Kane's voice came over the comms. "We have a new problem." Darius turned to the screen, and what he saw made his blood run cold. A new fleet, massive, ancient, beyond comprehension. Ships that should not exist. A force that had watched from the shadows since the dawn of time. And now, they were coming. Not to conquer, not to enslave, to erase. Darius clenched his fists, and with the weight of an entire species behind him, he whispered, "Let them come. We are humanity, and we don't die easy." The galaxy was silent. The Dominion had fallen back. The Varak were gone. But war was far from over. In the vastness of space, an ancient force awakened, a presence older than time itself. They had erased Earth from history once before. Now, they would finish the job. But this time, humanity was ready. Darius Holt stood on the bridge of his captured warship, staring into the abyss. The stars burned. The fleets gathered. And for the first time in history, the universe feared mankind. He exhaled, gripping the console. "We survived the impossible. We took back our world. Now," his eyes burned with fire, "now we take the stars." The void shuddered. The war was not over. It had only just begun. The end